The sky was red as blood, and it was raining heavily. It was a battlefield drenched with thousands of corpses. A man named Ronan was the sole survivor. He was standing on top of the monstrosity that caused that disaster. It was one of the 3 white giants that destroyed half the empire in 20 days. One of the giants died at the hands of an angry red dragon, the other was sealed eternally by an old man called Lorehorn, and the last one died at the hands of Ronan. Although he won, he was critically injured and his comrades were dead. At that moment, he heard a voice. It was the voice of the only other survivor beside him, the Grand Commander Adeshan. She was also heavily injured and on the brink of death. She asked if he killed the white giant. He replied that he had killed him and his body was close. While Ronan was at his last breath, he told her that he would like to go to the academy if he had another chance. He lived a miserable life and his late sister's last wish was to send him to the academy. Suddenly the rain stopped. As if it were a nightmare, thousands of white giants descended from the sky. The world was guaranteed to be destroyed. But even in the face of despair, Ronan didn't give up. He took up his sword to fight till the end. Seeing his unwavering will, the commander gave Ronan what seemed to be a glowing magic artifact. She told him that if they were to ever meet again, he should tell her to become a tailor and not do anything stupid. At that moment, the 8-winged giant gathered magic in its hand and made a giant explosion. It killed them instantly. Amid the explosion, the magic artifact started glowing. When Ronan opened his eyes, he saw a wide grassland. It was his hometown. He had regressed to the past. While he was confused, he recalled what the commander told him. She told him that the magic artifact was an orb that turns back time. That's how she who was once a tailor was able to become a grand commander. The orb allows one to regress 4 times and she had already used it 3 times. So there was only one chance left. Ronan was still in disbelief at everything that had happened. Suddenly he realized that if he had traveled to the past, his sister might be alive. So he grabbed the wooden stick beside him and ran at full speed. On his way home, he saw a bunch of bullies hanging a child upside down. But on a closer look, it turned out they weren't using a rope, but magic to lift him. That kind of magic was rare even on the battlefield, but seeing it in the countryside was shocking. The magician was a red-haired feminine boy. He learned magic as a hobby, but he was being forced into hanging the child on the tree. At that moment, Ronan hit him with a stick and his magic was undone. The bully was mad at him for ruining his fun, but Ronan ignored him. He asked the red-haired boy how he learned telekinesis magic. The boy told him, he learned it through a grimoire he bought from a peddler. Ronan was impressed that he was able to learn magic from a dirt-cheap book. Then the angry bully took out his sword. Ronan was curious as to how he got his hands on a real sword. The bully was strong and he swung his sword at him. But Ronan was a soldier, and with his exceptional battle sense, he dodged the sword easily. The bully thought he was lucky and told him that if he accidentally killed him, he would treat his sister with affection. As he was about to talk about his sister's roundass, the enraged Ronan cut off his left ear. He asked the bully if he wanted to die. After that, he told them to get out of there and leave behind their money and sword as compensation for ruining his mood. When they left, he gave the money to the bullied kid and kept the sword for himself. The kid was grateful to him and left with joy, and as for the red-haired magician, Ronan told him to meet him a few days at midnight. He threatened him saying if he didn't come, he would be dead. Then Ronan ran toward his home. He picked whichever flower he came across and brought them because his sister liked flowers. At that moment, his sister opened the door and the only thing he could say was that he came back home. His sister's name was Ariel. She prepared various kinds of dishes for him, almost too much. Then he asked for her age. After learning she was 22, he discerned that 10 years were left until the White Giant's invasion. So to protect that world and his sister he had to grow stronger. He told her that he wanted to enter the academy. Ariel was happy to hear that, since he would never listen to her whenever she brought it up. Then she started digging up her things. She brought out a cauldron filled to the brim with money. She was saving for his tuition, in case he ever changed his mind. Ronan thanked her for it but told her to use the money for herself. Since that amount wouldn't be enough. He told her that he wanted to enter the Imperial School, Philion Academy. Philion Academy is the Empire's leading educational facility. With the continent's most outstanding professors, combined with the imperial family's funding, it was prestigious enough to be called a factory of heroes. It has produced many unbelievable figures. Which is why the commander told him to enroll here in his past life. That night Ronan went into the nearby forest and met up with the red-haired magician. He told her that he wanted to test his strength and that he should lift him with his magic. The red-haired magician used the magic called Invisible Hand to lift him up. As Ronan was floating in the sky, he recalled that telekinesis magic was very rare among mages, who are rare to begin with. So in other words, the red hair will be the most important factor in his battle with the giants. After coming down, Ronan gave his luggage to the red hair and told him to follow. The red hair was reluctant, so Ronan told him that the events of that night would become the first page of Ronan's biography, the Empire's greatest history book. While they were walking through the forest, Ronan explained that they would enroll in Philion Academy. The red hair was timid and scared and he thought he couldn't do it. But with his flowery words, Ronan easily convinced him to enroll with him. After walking for a while, they reached their destination. It was the hideout of lunar goblins. Those types of goblins were common in that area. They have yellowish skin and their unique trait is that they go crazy over gold. They steal treasure from passing merchants and gather the goods in one area. Then they hold a festival under a full moon. The reason Ronan went to that place was to steal their treasure. He told the red hair that he only needed to use his telekinesis to move the treasure into the bag, while the goblins were sleeping. The red hair told him that it was too dangerous of a plan, so Ronan explained that to enter Philion Academy they needed two things. Money to afford the insane tuition and experience. Because the noble elites receive systematic training from birth, the only way they can compete with those nobles is to gain experience by risking their lives. And the lunar goblins are the perfect opponent to gain both money and experience. Since the red hair couldn't refute his argument, he went along with his plan. After a while, the red hair successfully filled their bags with treasure. Ronan was impressed because he was actually not that confident. Then he smiled devilishly as he found a really good minion. As they were about to leave, two men were chasing after a bird. The ruckus they made woke up the lunar goblins from their sleep. When they woke up they saw that their treasure was gone. As they were on high alert they spotted Ronan and red hair. The enraged goblins started running toward them. The red hair was numb, and Ronan took out his sword. After looking at the sword he concluded that it could only withstand 15 attacks, and there were 30 goblins. As the goblins attacked them, he cut off the heads of 3 goblins in a flash. And for the rest of the goblin mob that came rushing after, he disappeared for a little and appeared again, all in an instant. The red hair was dumbfounded to see such a spectacle. After the fight was over, they packed their thing and headed home. On their way, someone shot an arrow, aiming at the red hair. Thankfully Ronan caught it with his hand. It turned out that 2 suspicious men, who were the cause of the ruckus, were the shooter. They apologized saying they didn't know it was a human. While looking at their bags with greed, they got closer. Ronan saw through their act at a glance and told them to reveal their identity. Then one of the men got closer. He told them they were from Calabaro and tried to stab Ronan with a knife. Ronan grabbed his hand and knocked him out with a punch. Seeing that, the blond man took out his knife and attempted to attack him. But the red-haired boy stopped him with his telekinesis magic. Ronan took that chance to slice him to pieces. The red hair was shocked to see him commit murder. But Ronan told him that he wouldn't let someone who tried to kill him live. Also, they were from Calaboro. From killing, poaching, kidnapping, and human trafficking, it's the most heinous group that commits every single crime possible. If it weren't for Ronan killing them, they would have harvested their organs and buried them alive. At that moment, from the bag that the thugs were carrying, a chained blue bird came out. It was the first time they had seen a blue bird. When the bird saw them, communication magic was activated. Through the magic, the owner of the bird talked with them. The bird was chained with a mana-disrupting magic chain. So Ronan asked him if he were to remove the chain, would the bird be able to go back home? The owner told him that the bird was called a dream bird and that it had an excellent homing instinct. Hearing that, Ronan took out his sword and destroyed the chain instantly. After seeing the cool side of Ronan, the dream bird fell in love with him. So it shoved its ass in his face. The owner told him that the bird wanted him to pluck out a feather because it wanted to meet him again. After plucking out a feather, it has a trait where the feather will direct to the main body like a compass. Ronan took a feather and the dream bird flew away at a frightening speed. After the bird left, he looked at his hand and saw poop. So he threw it at a rock, but unexpectedly the rock shattered. It was a tough item. The next day, they found a good merchant to trade their valuables. The merchant bought everything from them at a good price. Then Ronan asked the merchant to appraise the egg that they got from the bluebird. After carefully observing the color and texture, he concluded that it was horse poop. Then he put the egg back in his pocket and asked the merchant if he had any books about Philion Academy. Then the merchant told them that his daughter was an applicant too, and she could help them. At that moment, his daughter showed up. She was the only child of the merchant, her name was Maria. When Ronan saw her, he was shocked. He came up to her and asked her to lend her ear. He whispered into her ear asking if she had a dick. Maria was dumbfounded to hear such bullshit. While Ronan was wondering if the merchant had a son he didn't know about, Maria mustered all her strength and slapped his face. As soon as Ronan was hit, he recognized the good slap. When he was a disciplinary soldier in a fort, Count Maria-san was in charge of supplies. He had a great personality that can get along with anyone, but when talks about dicks occurred, he had an unusual habit of slapping people. He wanted to ask him why, but Maria died before him. However, in this life, he finally found the answer. Maria was a girl. Then they got into a brutal fight. A while later, as if nothing happened, they got along and were discussing the academy entrance exam. Maria complimented the red-haired magician because telekinesis magic was rare and he could receive a scholarship for it. As for both of them, they would need to demonstrate good swordsmanship and usage of mana. Ronan was confused as to how they would use mana if they were not magicians. Hearing that, Maria told him that the usage of mana is the basics of basics, something all swordsmen can do. Ronan still didn't know what she was talking about. Maria was shocked, so she told him to follow her and that she would show it to him through a practical duel. Mana is a natural energy that flows through everything in the world, but now everyone can use it. In order to sense mana, it usually takes 1 year and the students of the academy surpass that stage. They have learned their own mana techniques. Maria told him, the fact that he didn't know all that and wanted to enter the academy was ridiculous. She thought he would learn faster by using his body instead of his head. So they start their duel. As their swords clashed, Ronan couldn't see her mana, but he was surprised to see that she could exert that much power at that age. However, even with mana, she was being pushed back. As she was being distracted by her thoughts, Ronan attacked her more seriously and pushed her back. Then he advised her that she should fix her center of balance, she would improve a lot if she did. Then Ronan withdrew his sword and walked away. Maria told him it wasn't over, but at that moment, her sword shattered into pieces. The red hair comforted Maria as if he knew what she was going through, and Maria was dumbfounded by that situation. The next day, Maria gave them several books and notes for the exam. After that, it was time to leave. She told them she would see them again on the test date, and parted ways. Then Ronan's daily life went by as usual, but a little bit different. He ate Ariel's dishes until his belly would burst. With the built-up calories, he would hunt the monsters in the forest until all the beasts went extinct. And at night he would do something he never did in his previous life, studying. He tried his best and a month passed. Then it was time to head to the imperial capital, Valen. The red hair was astounded to see the marvelous city. And Ronan told him to stop acting like a country bumpkin. Then suddenly, the feather he got from the dream bird started reacting. It was pointing toward the top floor of the academy tower. The top floor was the residence of the dream bird and its owner. He was a warlion and the academy's zoology professor. He wanted to let some fresh air in. But when he opened the window, a face scary as hell was awaiting him. The frightened-to-death warlion let out a loud roar. At first, the professor thought they were thieves who came after the bird. But upon seeing the homing feather in their hands, he realized they were the saviors. The professor treated them nicely and sat down to talk. Then Ronan took the chance to ask him about the item that the bird pooped out. The professor was shocked to see it. He told them it wasn't an ordinary egg, but a dream bird's egg. Depending on its environment, a dream bird will lay an egg. In an area of lava, a phoenix could hatch. In a monster nest, it could take on the appearance of a monster, and there are circumstances where it wouldn't look like a bird at all. The professor told him the mana inside the egg was tremendous and it was difficult to determine what was inside it. He further added that the fact that the dream bird laid the egg in front of its heroes meant it saw something special. So they should look after the egg. Before they left, the professor gave them something and told them that it would help them in hatching the egg. After that, it was time for the practical exam of the Philion Academy. In the waiting area, Ronan was sitting among hundreds of other applicants. They had to enter the testing room when their number was called. There, he met with Maria once more. She was wearing an expensive set of clothes because it was a private academy for nobles. And they might become a valuable customer later on. Then Ronan's number was called out. When Ronan entered the room, he met the professors. They were all extraordinary. But among them, the old man in the middle was the headmaster and a powerful archmage. The woman beside him was overwhelming too. Her name was Nabirose the Grand Sword Saint and she was the swordsmanship instructor. Ronan greeted them and the headmaster asked him to demonstrate his ability by attacking the dummy beside him. When they asked about his technique, Ronan told them he would show them a simple fast cut. The professors were laughing because the dummy in front of Ronan was actually a magically engineered product. Even aura users would have a tough time leaving a scratch. But the headmaster was intrigued when he saw Ronan's vigor. Then Ronan made a fast cut aiming at the dummy's neck, then he withdrew his sword. Two of the professors were laughing at his demonstration. However, the headmaster knew better. He was shocked to see such a powerful cut. The swordsmanship instructor got up from her seat and rushed toward Ronan. She put her sword at his neck. With a threatening look, she asked him who he was, and how he learned that swordsmanship. And that is all for now. Find out more about this series in the next recap video. Let us know in the comments the manhwa or manga you want us to recap next.